Welcome everybody to the Sufina Society Nothing But Facts live stream. I want to get straight to the point. You know, I despise live streams that begin with 5 minutes of credits, of sponsors, of updates. Why? Hey, let's get straight to the thing. Put that stuff in later. You know, once you do that, it's not helping you. Everyone is skipping over those first 5 minutes because it's predictable. Right. So anyway, put our GRT thing up when you get a chance, because we're doing a raise for them. That's the charity that we work with here. And we're streaming from New Brunswick on a day that is gray outside, but it's warm. And I want to discuss a subject. Listen to this hadith. إذا سمع أحدكم النداء والإناء على يده فلا يضعه حتى يقضي حاجته منه. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said regarding the month of Ramadan and Suhur, if any of you hears the call, he didn't say that, he said an-nida, and there is food in your plate or your bowl or your cup, then do not put it down until you finish what's in it. Oh, so I'm confused now, because what if my ina is full? What if this is my ina and the adhan is going off? I get to drink the whole thing? So the answer to that is, right, عند شرح هذا الحديث حتى تقضي حاجته بأن يشرب منه, you drink from it and you eat from it, right? But which is this, right? And he says, we have mentioned now that this regards the first adhan of Bilal, not the adhan of Maktoum. And many people, maybe they confused by this, because it still happens in Mecca. There are two adhans. There's the adhan, which is about maybe 20 minutes before the second adhan. Some people call it adhan al-tahajjud. But other than that, let me take a look at that. Let's look at what our fuqaha said about that. قال الخطابي هذا على قوله. This is all regarding the Prophet saying, Inna Bilalan yu'adhinu bilaylin. Bilal calls the adhan in the middle of the night. So eat and drink until Ibn Maktoum gives the adhan, which is the proper adhan. All right. So he says here, قال البيهقي هذا إن صح. This is if this narration is even sound. And Ibn al-Qayyim also says that there is illah in this hadith in the first place. But let's leave that part aside. فهو محمول عند عوام أهل العلم على أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم علم أن المنادي كان ينادي قبل الفجر. Okay. Again, Al-Bayhaqi states that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he says, if you hear the adhan and you have food in your mouth, then eat it, he's talking about the tahajjud adhan, not fajr, because that would mean you're breaking your fast. As the Quran clearly says, you fast. So you have to stop at fajr. So let's take another example. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also, let's take a look at his action. What is the action of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? The Sahabi was asked, Zayd ibn Thabit said, we ate tasaharna ma'an Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sahih Bukhari hadith. Now we're going to see what is the Prophet's action. How does he have suhoor? To prove that the Prophet was referring to the first adhan, not the second adhan, the tahajjud adhan and not Fajr. We made suhoor with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ثم قام إلى الصلاة. Then he got up to pray. Anas ibn Malik says, كم كان بين الأذان والسحور. How long was the time between adhan and suhoor? So clearly the Prophet's stopping well ahead of the adhan. In those days, back in the day, they used to measure time by actions. So you'll have some hadith that say the amount of time it takes you to milk a goat. They used to measure time by actions. He says here, قدر 50 ayah. The amount of time it takes you to recite 50 ayahs. And that is maybe 15 minutes. Like 50, Surah Yasin is 86 ayahs, right? Surah Yasin, it's 86 ayahs. So it takes you 15 minutes, 10 minutes even? 10, 15 minutes, let's say. 10, 15, and Morocco, one of the ulama there from year 1000 of Hijri, he has a line of poetry, and at the time they had a concept of minutes by that time. And he said it's 20 minutes. And he said it had become a sunnah, or to follow that sunnah, they had established that sunnah, and they would establish reminders to people to do what's called imsak. So the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that between suhoor and adhan is a gap of time in which there's no eating and no drinking, not for obligation, but for ihtiyat, to be safe. There could be food in your mouth. You need time to brush your teeth, to get food out of your mouth. Maybe you forgot food. You forgot medicine. So a buffer time. A buffer time. So the Prophet's sunnah is to delay suhoor. And delaying suhoor means all the way up to the time where you could possibly fall into Fajr. Then it's unacceptable. Like there's doubt. Imam Malik said once you enter the realm of doubt, like we're getting very close, maybe I'll pass over Fajr, maybe not. He said therefore that becomes forbidden for you to eat at that time. Right. Forbidden, probably he meant here ala sabil al-karaha. It's discouraged because you can accidentally fall into Fajr. So what clearly this hadith does not mean is that when the adhan is being called for Fajr, that you continue to eat what's in your hand. That would clearly be contradicting all four madhabs, contradicting nusus that we know that we don't need madhabs for. A Muslim does not need a madhab to know that siyam is from Fajr until Maghrib. This is straight in the Quran. We don't need madhahib for that. We do need the sharh of a hadith and the shuruhat of a hadith to ascertain and be certain that the Prophet's hadith, in this case, intended the first adhan, not the second adhan. So that's an important piece of information for everyone to have, is that in the time of the Messenger, and even till today, and even in certain clocks that you have, certain clocks that they sell you now, that you put in your home for the adhan, they will even give you tahajjud adhan. So that is part of the sunan of the adhan, is to have this tahajjud adhan and the fajr adhan. Between them is about 25, 30 minutes, whatever it is. But again, Khattabi clarifies here that the hadith is talking about the first adhan. Any questions on this? And we got questions coming in from YouTube already, from Qandil. But let's get to our interesting updates here. Omar, fire it up, and let's get Mu'een and Naz on here. Ahmed, tafadhal.
It's Nafiz.
What did I say?
Nafiz.
I said Ahmed because Ahmed's sitting right next to me. Let's get Mu'een and Nafiz. Mu'een and Nafiz, tafadhalu. Because today we have two updates. We got an AI update and Umrah. Omar, well, don't forget the Umrah thing, because we had good news. By popular demand, we have increased our spots by 10. By popular demand. So get them quickly before they get taken, because by popular demand, people requested more spots for our Umrah trip in this month of Ramadan. And alhamdulillah, we're going to get that. We got 10. You know how hard it is to get hotel rooms at this time of year in Ramadan? So we got the hotel rooms, we got the flights, and we are expanding our Umrah trip by 10 more people. All right, Mu'een, earlier today, you sent me a video in which you or somebody else sent me a video in which an AI phone was talking to Two phones were set up next to each other, and an AI bot called another company, which use an AI bot, just to ask them for a mundane thing like a plane ticket or a hotel room or something, and introduced himself as an AI bot. So the other bot then says, well, since you're AI, I'm AI, why don't we talk in an easier language to talk? So now the question came up is that the person who put that video out didn't inform us. Did he program them to do that? Is there a way for him to know? Did they invent that language? Does he know what they're saying? We don't know that, so it could give people different impressions. And anyway, I sent that to Moin and Naz, who are they work and live in AI. They know everything about AI. So they said, we need to come on the stream because we have stuff to say. All right, so Moin, تفضل.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام.
Thank you for having us. It's been a while. So I think to start off, so I think this, first of all, I think it's I think you said Naz. So we have another friend named Naz. So this is Nafiz, not
Nafiz,
Naz.
what did I say? I said Ahmed, then Naz, then Nafiz?
You said Naz, and you said Moin and Naz are on.
No, Nafiz. Nafiz.
It's fine. No, it's Nafiz. But Naz and Nafiz are good friends, so we get them confused ourselves. All right. So to just talk on the topic of AI, and I think at this point, I don't need to define what AI is. I think most of the audience probably already knows. And the video that you were sent, I mean, I don't think I sent it, but I'm familiar with the video in which there was two, cell phones or something set up and they were talking to each other and they transitioned from, English to just sounds. I'm not sure if that video was, real and it was like an actual language or if it was just like some gibberish that they're talking to one another. That being said, I think one of the things that Nafiz and I wanted to talk about is because we work, with AI a lot. We even run like a little consultancy firm where we work with different companies to bring AI into their companies. So we're kind of seeing this every day and we're seeing the advancements come. So I think the last time I was on stream was maybe right after the launch of GPT-4, which is a model released by OpenAI, and that was about a year and a half ago. Ever since then, there have been a significant number of updates. And I think one of the largest and most impactful updates was yesterday. So much so that, I think Nafiz and I are both becoming alarmed at the rate of change. And, we wanted to come on and talk about some of the impacts that we might start seeing in the real world in about, 6 to 9 months, maybe a year, that we're all going to start feeling it as a society. So I'll start there. And if Nafiz has anything to add, you can add something and then we'll continue the discussion.
All right. Yeah. How are we going to feel it as a society?
So I think for starters, let's talk about some of the advancements that have been made. And let me throw out some terminology and why some of that terminology is important. So the first model that people are familiar with is something called GPT 3.5. So that was released by OpenAI, I think in January 2022. Most people, and when I say most, I mean even up to like director level executives at technology companies sometimes have only used that model, right? Which was released 2 years ago. That model had a lot of different limitations and issues, the biggest one of which was its intelligence and also its something called context window. This is the amount of information that you can put into a model and the amount of information that it can process and what it can output out to you, right? So that was very small. Then OpenAI released something called GPT-4.
Okay.
This was the smartest model at that time, and it was able to start processing documents and speaking like a human and understanding things in a way that a human would. And after that, over the course of the last year and a half, the models have become significantly smarter, so much so to the point that now they are doing PhD level work. And after doing PhD level work, we're now at a point where they are autonomously working, right? And in an agentic way. So I'll have Nafiz actually explain what that means. And so many of those advancements haven't just happened from open AI. They have happened from, firms like, Twitter, or also known as X, Google. You guys may have heard of DeepSeek through China, and various different other firms, right? Meta through Facebook has also open sourced a model called Llama. There's so many different advancements that are being made across the industry that we are at a place where I would say, for the most part, the models are now more intelligent than your average human. Maybe not more intelligent than someone at a PhD level, but if you took the average high schooler or the average college graduate, then the model, by all intents and purposes, is smarter, right? So
But let me ask you a question. That's like saying, would it be fair to say a calculator is smarter than every one of us, right?
right at doing mathematics, right?
At doing math. So you're talking about like that in all information fields, correct?
Yes. Now, like, somebody might push back on that and say, well, it's not able to do my specific thing. My specific job, for example, I have a job in which I talk to a lot of people. It
Yeah.
can't do that because it doesn't have established relationships. That's true, right? A machine isn't going to be able to replace a human task, right? So, for example, in order to hop onto this podcast, I had to liaise with you and talk with Omar and get the Zoom link. All of these things require some level of relationship building and all of these things, right? So
Yep.
those are human tasks.
Yep.
But anything that's a pure knowledge task, it can do, right?
Pure knowledge task, yeah.
Yeah, so a pure knowledge and especially digital knowledge task, it can do, right? And it's getting very close to being able to do that very well. So I'm actually going to pass it over to Nafiz, see if he has any thoughts.
All right, Nafiz, had to connect.
Yeah, I completely agree with Muin. These models right now, like over the past years, we have seen a gradual progression. Like we are now at a tipping point where these models, the technology that can disrupt the society is already here. So it's not a research problem anymore. It's an engineering problem now to basically
Explain.
integrate. So a research problem is the technology is not there. We have to do research, like how to get to that technology. But the technology is here. Now, the research problem is solved. Now, how do we get that technology integrated into all aspects of society? That's the engineering problem. Like we have to create tools to do that. And that's the only barrier right now between that massive social impact with these models.
I've always, maybe you can help me answer this. This is a bit negative, but my imagination says that COVID was one of the biggest things that the world's seen, its impact. What is the AI version of COVID going to look like?
Okay, so I'm going to say a very alarming and alarming statement that's going to seem pretty hyperbolic to a lot of people. I think in order to understand the impact that AI is going to have on society, none of us, and I mean literally nobody living today, has ever experienced this level of change that's going to be coming in the next 5 years. In order to have a mindset on how to tackle this, I want everybody to not think about like the cell phone. I don't want anybody to think about cloud computing. I don't even want anybody to think about electricity. I want everybody to think about what impact did the discovery of fire have to humanity. So we're talking about something to the effect of the discovery of fire and how it affected the world is how much impact AI is going to affect the world. Because we're now at a place in society where we're already seeing some of these impacts. So for example, let's take it one area at a time. Let's talk about education, right? We're already seeing the impacts in education in college classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
People are not studying for exams anymore or doing assignments anymore because there's no value. A student could be in the middle of an exam, take a picture of their exam on their paper on their phone, look at it under the table, and get all the answers in a second, and it's going to be 100% correct, right? So the disruption that happens at that level, and then at that, and a college student also now has to ask, what am I studying for? The job that's going to be there that I was going to study for is no longer going to exist in the next 5 years. And
Especially
that's
on
just
software engineering. Yep.
yeah. So
Especially on software
I work.
engineering.
So I work as a software engineer, and we can extrapolate the work that I do in technology into other fields, right? So take software engineering in GPT-4, and we'll show some examples of this. When GPT-4 came out 2 years ago, you were able to ask it to write you a software program, or take a very small software program and make an update. Now what you're able to do is you're able to link using tools that have been created after that, such as a tool called Cursor. You're able to link it directly to a code base repository. And then after you've linked it to the code base repository, you can then just ask it, hey, can you make an update on this UI? I want you to add the following 10 fields. And it's going to go and look through all of your files. It's going to add all of those 10 fields. And then it's just going to say, here's all the updates. Can you review and let me know if you want to submit this? So the other day I built an application in which I wanted to, so I think Nafiz mentioned to me there's a, that the Habaib have said that, in these times that we should recite Surah Al-Kahf, daily, or at least the first 10 and the last 10. So I was sitting there using my Quran app, and I was like, this is really annoying having to open. This is how lazy we are, but I was like, it's really annoying to have to open, Surah Al-Kahf, scroll down to 110. I was like, it'd be nice if I could just have an application where I could just click and it opens. So I said, this would only take me 10 minutes anyway. So I go to the chat. I say, hey, can you make me this application? In 10 minutes, I have a working application. And then I've, now within another 10 minutes, I'm able to add the awrad, I'm able to add everything. Fully working application on the internet within 20 minutes. That would have taken somebody that would have taken weeks, maybe months, and a lot of money, only 2 years ago to do.
To make an application that just had Surah Al-Kahf on it.
Surah Al-Kahf, I added Wird al-Latif, I added, all the things that I, for example, have awrad for the day. Right? Personalized to me.
Basically, what Muin is pointing to is, before printing press came, there was a profession. There was a whole profession of people who would copy books to sell books to other people. Scribes, right? And after printing press, that whole profession got wiped out.
100%, yeah.
So we are going to make a statement that's going to seem very provocative. But software engineering is going to be like that. Humans coding is going to be like that. It's a matter of when, not if. The models are already here. There's already a term coined. It's called vibe coding. It means you just sit here and tell the model, hey, I need this. Then it generates it. Then you look at the output. Then you say, okay, I don't like this portion. Change this to this. And then it changes that. And it changes that. You are just basically doing English language communication, and it's just outputting things. And there will be a time when you won't even need to do that. The model will be able to plan. Right now, the models are weak in planning and executing. And if there's a bug in the system, debugging that. But the models are constantly improving on those too.
What did you mean by autonomously working?
Okay, so
doesn't somebody need to tell it what to do?
So that's the next thing I'll get to. So when we talk about software engineering as a career being wiped out, I don't just mean software engineering just one sole developer. I mean the entire stack. Everybody from an analyst to a designer to a software engineer. If you have a team of 200 people, let's say you have a team of 10,000 people, right? Let's say a company like Meta. You can now reduce. Maybe you need some humans, but you can now reduce 10,000 people to 10 people, right? We're talking about 99% reduction. 90% reduction, right? We're not talking about, 5 to 10%, a couple people get laid off. We're talking about an entire industry wiped out. Right now, all of those people, they get laid off. Where do they go? They're now going to go to the finance jobs. They're going to go to every other job that exists out there, right? That's a white collar digital sit at your computer type job. And what we mean by autonomous is most people, since they've only used the GPT-4 or GPT 3.5 era, they're not even aware of how intelligent these systems now are. Before, you had to give it a command and it would do this command, and let's say you gave it like, hey, I want you to summarize this document. The way that a language learning model understands that is it understands it as tokens. It doesn't actually see it as words, right? It's taking all of that out input and then it's converting into tokens, and then it would just basically estimate what it should give you back, right? And so it's doing like a prediction. Once it gives you all of this information back, now you're able to process it. The way when we say autonomous or when we say an agent, what that means is now you give it a task. I want you every day at 10 o'clock to pull all of the stock records for the top 10 most earning stocks, and give me a report. That's one level of autonomy, right? Every day at 10 o'clock, it's just a task that goes out and it does it for you.
Yeah.
Now we add a second agent and we say that, hey, when the first agent gives you back this report, we want you to then take this report and go purchase those stocks. Then we have a third agent that says, okay, after those stocks have been purchased, we want you to review with the first agent based on yesterday's information what the stock picks for tomorrow will be, right? And then all three of you are going to coordinate as a team, and you're going to work together to increase my net revenue for as a stock trader over the course of the next month. So what autonomy allows you to do with these models is you can now work on many different tasks at the same time. Now, when you have an autonomous software engineer, you're not just going to have one. You can have 1 billion of them at the same time, right? So you can have the intelligence of 1 billion PhDs working for your company all at the same time, right? So there's now discussion even at the highest level of government, right? Elon Musk and these folks is how do we understand post-labor economics? As in, what happens when labor is no longer the driving motivator in an economy? What do you do when humans are just not necessary for anything anymore? So most of the world right now, as we understand it, is structured in a manner in which you go to high school, you go to college, you get a degree, and this degree will then get you a job, right? Most of education is not structured around pure education anymore, right? It's structured around how do I become like some corporate slave, right? What's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years is we're going to see a immediate drop in the value of intelligence, right? Like immediate drop. Like intelligence will no longer have the level of cost associated with it anymore. Like your degree is not going to be valuable anymore because like there's a meme going around that a guy, he says, I went to Harvard, and the company CEO, he says, well, that's great, but we have 1 million agents that are smarter than you and are more effective. And he says, like, can you mop the floor? Are you good at that? And he says, I'm not. And he's like this skinny guy, and he's just like, like I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to mop the floors. Like it's like, well, we have no use for you. And he says, well, what about my Harvard degree? He says, well, I'm sorry, your Harvard degree is not valuable here. And by the way, we're not joking. Like Nafiz actually has a Harvard degree, right? Like we're not just like talking, right? Like Nafiz has gone to Harvard, and he's saying this, right? So we're not just joking around and being hyperbolic, and like there's a real like discussion that we as Muslims need to start participating in, because there's going to be a tremendous need to provide value, right? As in like there's going to be a crisis that people have. Like everything that I worked for is now like useless. So what is my purpose to live, right? So that's where Muslims can come in and say, look, like your purpose wasn't to become like a data scientist anyway, right? Like we have a bigger purpose than this.
Yeah. So let me ask this question to Nafiz. Take the mic so we'll get to your question first after this. But what is the alignment problem? Luqman Rashid says, you can't solve the alignment problem. You can hide it, but you can't solve it. What is he talking about? What is the alignment problem?
I don't know what he specifically is referring to, but there is an alignment problem in terms of like when they train these large language models. After that, they have to specifically like post train them so that when a human asks them questions, they don't just say offensive things and those things like that. Like that's basically, they want to align to their version of safety, the AI safety ethics problems of these companies. Like they just can't say out controversial things. So there's a training that happens, kind of where they bias the model towards some sort of answer when it gets asked controversial questions. So
Well, Gemini went through
that's
that,
also
right?
referred to as alignment. Yeah.
Yeah,
All models go through.
Yeah, every model is based on who makes it. Gemini was had some funny videos about them, and they said, for example, show me a German family, and it brought this like completely diverse group of people that's not realistic at all of being German, right?
Yeah.
So basically, it was trained to be like that. Then they changed it, right? When they saw people getting upset about it, they changed it. But in any event, so that's what I guess that's what it means by the alignment problem. Let's go talk about then jobs that or the industries that AI cannot displace.
Yeah. So before we get to that, I have a point on the alignment problem. So I think I've read Luqman's article as well. So I think what
Luqman is someone known in this world, in the AI world. I mean,
I've read that specific piece. I don't know if he's known in the AI world, but
okay, that's good that you guys know each other. Okay, nice. All right.
So what he means by the alignment problem, and this is like a known problem, right? Which is the goal of AI safety and alignment is to make sure that a machine or an AI does what a human asks it to do, right? Now, the problem is that we have certain rules in the real world, which if a murderer asks a robot to murder another person, should the robot actually, proceed with that command, right? Because it's doing a number of things. It's not actually doing what its owner, right, the murderer asked it to do, but at the same time, it's hurting, somebody else's life. If anybody's ever seen the movie like I, Robot, right, in which Will Smith is dealing with the robot, and it has like 3 laws that it has to follow, right? So there's like in science fiction, there's called like Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. So
Which are?
I think the first one is, a robot should not harm another human. It should. I forget exactly what
it should always obey. It's the human, right?
Yeah, there's 3 rules that that are supposed to be logically sound. So like that was like the initial like thought process of like AI alignment. It's like, okay, how do we make sure that an AI is actually safe? Like, for example, if you have an image generation AI, should you allow it to generate any image? Like if a pedophile asks it to make an image of like, a prepubescent child, would you allow that? Right. And most people will say obviously no, right? Obviously the pedophiles will say yes, but the most people will say no, we shouldn't allow that. Okay, well, if you don't allow that, then would you allow the AI to would you allow the AI to make like someone getting murdered? And you say no to that, then how do you train the AI to actually understand what a prepubescent child is if it isn't even allowed to make it? It has to be able to make it, but then at the same time, when asked by a human, has to be prevented from making it. Right? So it's like it's a dual problem. It's a catch-22 problem, right? It has to actually have the ability to make it in order to know that it cannot make it.
Yeah.
Right? So then
it just has to know about it though, right? You have to plug in images
yeah, but how
of
does
it. Right.
Yeah, so this is where like the alignment problem comes, which is, how do you make it safe for humanity? And I don't think anybody can solve this, because the truth is every single society and every single person has their own morals, right? What Muslims think is correct, morally, is going to vary from what an atheist thinks is correct morally, right? Versus, a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu, right? And so
like
because
these
of
companies like OpenAI or Gemini, Google, or like Twitter, they do these trainings, right? After post training for safety. Like how is it being influenced by their own background, their own metaphysics? What do they believe in? Of course, it's going to be impacted by that, their own ethics. their own ethics, and they are going to decide this is good, this is bad. And that's why these models were like so woke before,
They're
like
100% woke.
before the current trend, like where now everyone is going anti-woke. Like it's a trend always.
Yeah, it's a trend, and I never thought we'd see this trend, but I'm happy to see it, to be honest with you. I mean,
Yeah, so
I despised this thing from day one. 2015, when we first started the Safina Sadi podcast, we were considered so on the edge. You can't invite these guys. You can't be seen with these guys. You have to secretly listen to these guys. It turns out we're like conservative now. Like we're in the middle now. I mean, right? Because back in the day, that was so far off to criticize these things. Now it's like a complete norm.
We are on the edge on AI too. Actually, I was
we're the same thing. Same problem.
I was checking the chat, and I expected this kind of pushback, like, oh, these models can't reason or do things like that. I mean, what do you mean by can't reason? Like that's a vague definition. As long as the model is outputting the correct answer, can we say it's not reasoning? For example, there's a benchmark called ARC. It's like the toughest benchmark out there to do basically judge these AI models. And it's basically a collection of IQ tasks that humans usually do in IQ exams. And the models have been very bad. Like the highest peak was like at 36% in terms of pass results.
IQ tests.
IQ tests, yeah, kind of. It's called ARC, A-R-C.
Yeah.
So OpenAI's new O3 model, which they didn't even publish yet, and I don't think they will, because they are going to use that for other products. It gets 76% on that, on its normal mode, and then 87% on a test time compute mode. Test time compute just means like when there's an extra hard problem, they give the model more compute power so that it can process for longer. It generates more tokens so that it can reason more, and then it gets to the correct answer. So I don't think like they can't reason. That kind of conversation actually doesn't help. As long as it's outputting the correct answer in difficult problems, like who are we to say it can't reason? We don't know what is happening inside that neural network.
Yeah,
it's like a black box.
So I'll give one pushback on a lot of people who, when they use AI models, they're looking at it from the perspective of a human, right? And especially when we approach it from the metaphysics of Islam, right? So there's a very famous quote from Imam al-Razi, rahimahullah ta'ala. He said that, the soul is the locus of creativity, right? So when Muslims approach these problems, it is because of our fitrah and our soul that we truly believe that we as humans can be creative, right? And creativity doesn't just extend to, drawing an art on a piece of paper. It extends to any task that you might do, right? Because we have something, like we have irada, right? We make a decision, and that decision Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to make, right? And this is getting a little bit aqidah heavy, but a machine doesn't have will, right? It doesn't have real will, at least, right? So when you ask a machine to do something, like let's say, I want you to solve this mathematical problem, it's going to go into its training data. Based on what it already understands of its training data, it's going to try to make a predictive guess about what this answer should be. That's not how a human being approaches a problem, right? A human being, there's a portion of it which they say like, okay, I've learned this and I've learned this and I've learned this. Let me now apply this. However, a human being might say, hey, there's 15 different other ways to approach this problem. Let me go talk to an expert. Let me go look in this book. Let me draw out this problem. Those are all creative solutions which come from the soul, right? Which come from how a human being operates in this world. And in my opinion, right, just as like, looking at the field of AI, I don't even believe that in 1,000 years an AI will be able to do this, because I don't actually rationally believe that the AI can be creative, right? That is something that comes from the soul. However, that is only a creative problem. If we're talking about a pure reasoning problem, I 100% believe that the AI will be able to reason better than any other human, right? And this is where people get tricked up. They're assuming that, oh, because it can't do the creative stuff, that it can't do anything. No, that's not true. It can, if you have to write a paper, there's a lot of logical tasks that must be done. The creative portion is maybe 10% of it, right? And maybe a human being is still involved for that 10% of creativity. But the rest 90%, that's done, right? That'll be solved by the AI.
Let
I'm
me
going to go
comment
ahead
on
and
both of these.
yeah.
Go
When
ahead.
it comes to the creative portion, something we have to realize is that humans are never alone. From day one, when Adam and Hawa came to the earth, Sayyidina Jibreel was with them. Many, many, many angels were on the earth helping them. Angel Jibreel came in human form. Some people have this idea, it was Adam and Eve, and they're all on the earth by themselves trying to figure out what's going on. No, that's like cruelty. No, Sayyidina Jibreel came with them, took human form, was with them all the time, like on a regular basis, brought down tools from the heavens with him, showed him how to have clothes, how to make fires, how to live in homes, how to cook food, how to slaughter animals. Like every single thing that is transmission based and is a necessary discovery for life, Jibreel brought it from day one, right? So many other angels were there with them. I mean, Imam Malik has a narration, and I couldn't find the source, but it's attributed to him that he went to Mecca and the Kaaba had already been built and had angels making tawaf in human form around it. So he had company. It was not this image that some people have of the first humans grunting, not knowing what the heck is going on. But my point here is that angels are always giving us inspiration from the heavens. Whenever you see in human society, it's like actual, truly innovative inventions and ideas, it always happens. The person says, I was just sitting thinking, right? Or I was half asleep, half awake, and the idea came to my head. So to Muslim and to non-Muslim, because even non-Muslims get this, because Allah has a will for the world. Ilham comes to people, and ilham could be, maybe, I don't know if ilham is the right word for the mundane things of the dunya that come to non-believers, but inspiration is always coming to people because Allah wants certain things to happen in the world, right? So from that creative standpoint, do machines receive ilham? I don't think so, right? I think that this angelic inspiration, heavenly inspiration, is only coming to human beings. So that's the one thing that the machine will never have. It'll only be able to come up with a solution based on the information it already has. No absolutely new information. The second thing that you mentioned was reasoning. Well, what would an AI model do when you can reason two things? You can go both ways on a judgment call. Not every issue, for example, only has one answer. Some issues have two answers. So what would a model do in that case? Would it just present you with both options?
It basically depends on like what you are asking it to do. If it has a decision-taking ability, like you are asking it to take a decision, then it will go one way. Or if you just asking it for options, it will give you all options. I just want to mention another point on the AI safety thing. Many people ask, what if the AI becomes conscious? Will it try to destroy us? So that's a question. Actually, we should ask another question. We don't need the machine to become conscious to destroy us. It's already trained on human data. Like whatever we write on the internet, we wrote on the internet since the invent of internet, it's been trained on that. So it will act on that. And we don't know what the AI model will do. Suppose if you give it access to a weapon system, what will it do? Mm-hmm. We don't know. Most probably something destructive will happen. So the technology is already here. So someone mentioned AlexNet on the chat. It's the first deep learning model that basically everyone came to know about, like how deep learning is changing the world. Back in 2012, it was developed by Jeff Hinton and his student Ilya. So Jeff Hinton got Nobel Prize this year in physics because of his AI contributions. And he is like really worried about like how these AI is going to impact our societies. especially in military, because all the powerful governments are already integrating them into their weapon systems. And then there's Yoshua Bengio, who is the other godfather of AI, they call him. He's also worried about them both economically and militarily. I sent a link to Omar, if you can show the video.
He'll fire it up, but it's like the chickens coming home to roost, that now it's humans are worried about AI spilling blood when angels were very worried about us spilling blood, right?
There you go, right? And I think, people worry about the AI, like as Nafiz said, people worry about, the AI is going to attack us. The AI doesn't need to attack you. The humans will use the AI to attack you already, right? I mean, this has already been seen. I forget what the system was called, but in Gaza, right, where Israel was using AI targeted, AI analysis to target specific civilians in Gaza and various places, right? And so this is being used by militaries around the world already, right? This isn't something that, what happens when the AI comes? No, the AI is already here. This is only an engineering problem. The research is already solved. It can already do all of the things that are necessary to harm human beings.
In fact, why would we imagine that human intervention with AI is a solution? That's probably more dangerous, right? Like humans having access to it will probably make things far worse for the same exact reason, because we're susceptible to influence from outside forces. We as Muslims, we never leave that mentality. The good is influenced by angels. The bad is influenced by demons. And probably when they say we're worried about what if the AI learns on its own, that's actually probably should be the lesser of two worries. The humans on the earth, like, what is their ethical system? There is none. Don't be a jerk is the essential ethical system of the world today, right? That's it. Maybe some people will say, do unto others as you do unto yourself or something. But then again, when that hits your economic life and political life, we've seen with the Palestine and genocide that goes out the window, right? We've seen that totally go. I really recently heard of a school teacher who got basically a talking to for getting the kids to sympathize with the other kids in Palestine. And then the school, the leaders there saying that there's no genocide going on. And if there is, it's their fault because they picked the fight. So you see how all of a sudden this wonderful liberal private school people, all of a sudden it's gone. Just like that. It didn't erode over hundreds of years. No, that all that humanity is gone just like that. When your dunya, when your worldly wealth is at stake. So let's check out this video.
I can see from the declarations that are made, and
while he's pulling up
these
the
people
video,
would do is that the people who control these systems, like say OpenAI potentially, they're not going to continue just selling the access to their AI. They're going to give access to a lower grade AI. They're going to keep the really powerful ones for themselves, and they're going to build companies that are going to compete with the non-AI, systems that exist, and they're going to basically wipe out the economies of all the other countries, which don't have these super intelligent systems. So you say you wrote it's not existential, but I think it is existential for countries who don't build up to this kind of level of AI, and it's an emergency because it's going to take at least several years, even with a coalition of the willing, to bridge that gap.
Makes sense. They're not gonna give away the good stuff. The good stuff is going to be kept for them, and whatever we're getting for free is helping train the thing and add in more information. So people shouldn't imagine that you're ever getting anything for free. You're the customer. You're not the customer. You're the
product.
The product. Whenever you get anything for free. Especially certain groups of people, when they give you something for free, there are always strings attached. But it's sort of silly to think, oh, look at these good deeds they're doing, giving OpenAI for free to everybody. No, you're part of it.
Yeah.
So
in fact, they already have
free. Your eyeballs are the product that he's selling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So they already have powerful models.
What's that?
That then they already have more powerful models that they are not giving us access.
Yeah.
All right, let's take the positive turn. How is this going to make life better for people?
So before we actually take the positive turn, I'd like to talk about one thing that is different today than it was 2 years ago. And I saw a couple of these comments in the chat. They're called hallucinations, right? In which the LLM, when given like a document or something and it needs to come up with citations, it'll like make up citations or it'll make up like a name or it'll make up like something that's not actually present or that you want. Now, this was true 2 years ago, and it's still relatively true sometimes for just basic writing where like you write like something and it'll create like a citation that doesn't even exist and the person doesn't exist and the book doesn't exist. This is only true with, in like a non-agentic, world. What that means is like where you only have one AI doing something. When you have a second AI that checks the work of the first AI, this is now a solved problem, right? Where the second AI reads the paper, looks up the citation, and then tells the first AI, hey, you need to fix your paper because the citation is incorrect, right? You've hallucinated, you need to fix it. So then there's this loop that consistently happens between multiple AI agents in which the second one is checking the work of the first one, right? In order to solve the initial, user query. User has asked for this. And this is something that, for example, OpenAI's deep research does, right? Which it's not just like this one-way terminal. There's a lot of things happening in the background in order to stop that hallucination. There's agents working with other agents in order to check your own work. So a lot of people still are operating in this frame of reference to AI from 2 years ago. No, you need to come into today where this has all changed. A lot of these things are solved problems. What you thought like, oh, it was hallucinating, doing all these things. No, it's not doing those things anymore. A lot of these things are solved problems. Now,
so you're not going to have TARS alone. You have to have TARS and Case along with them.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So in terms of like how
did you
I know somewhat of the references of Star Trek reference.
No, it's Interstellar. Tarzan.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
You played it really good. Right?
That's right.
You played it really good. Yeah, that's exactly. Right. Next point.
That's right. I remember.
Yeah, they got two of these robots. They got tons of robots
on the ship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned positives of this technology.
Yes.
Well, you know me, right? So I'm happy that academia is going to get wiped out, right?
I mean, I'm with you. The problem is that what's going to remain is the stuff that the fake studies, like, some of these different arts that are maybe not subjective human desires, right?
I think what is one of the positive benefits, if we're going to be a little bit philosophical, right? And speaking from the perspective of Muslims, I think Muslims will fare a lot better in the AI world than, non-Muslims will.
Reason?
A few things. One, we are a pretty collective, social, human religion, right? We have 5 times a day prayer in the masjid. We have Jummah, we have Eid, we have Ramadan, we have Hajj, we have Umrah, we have so many things.
Socialization.
Yeah, we have so many things which require us to be physically around one another.
Correct.
Another thing we have that's very positive for us, which is that we have knowledge that's fixed in time.
100%.
Right? Yeah. Right? We're not going to be adapting, our knowledge according to what the AI tells us. No, we have certain truths that we hold to be one self-evident, but also that are unchanging, right? Whatever the Prophet ﷺ taught us, the Quran, most of the, the riwayah of hadith, all of these things. The third is there's been a lot of fields ever since the Industrial Revolution in which Muslims have not been at the table.
Yep.
Whether, for example, media. Muslims are not at the table in media. You can't even get into these spaces, right? Because unless you have significant amounts of capital and significant amounts of connections within the media industry, you're not getting in, right? You're not going to get, a film at, DreamWorks without having high connections with the right people. Yep. Muslims have been excluded in these conversations. The one thing that AI will do is it levels the playing field. Because it levels the playing field, it now allows Muslims to step up, right? Yeah. And produce their own content, produce their own things. Another major benefit I believe that it will have is we're going to have to restructure society. We're going to have to. There's an inevitable, there's an inevitability to this. And because of that restructure, I think Muslims are going to have to be part of that conversation. What this post-labor world will look like. Where do people derive their value from? You know, where, and I think this is something that we are, you know, we know. Like, where can you derive your value from? You derive it from Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? We can, what Muslims can provide is invaluable. We're providing something that is purely human. You're not going to get this from the AI, right? Because this is connected to your soul. And so, I mean, other than that, I think
also,
if you
we are already poor.
Right, and we're used to being poor, right? Muslims are used to not having money. We're used to living, you know, in you know, basic necessities, right? We're trained for this, right? This is actually the environment Muslims thrive. Okay, take all the secular things away, and now, like, you know, this actually benefits us, right?
You know, having a lot of information does not necessarily make people happier. And having information at your fingertips does not make people happier. What makes people happier is something very simple, something called sakina that Allah creates. Put it in your heart. Then you could be homeless in a back alley in Fez or any random city with a piece of bread and cup of water. If Allah puts a sakina in your heart, you're going to feel like a king, and you're going to realize it's only hayat dunya. And you're going to be wonderful. You're going to be in the best mood that a human could possibly be in. If Allah takes that out, you could be a very rich man in Beverly Hills or in anywhere in London or Paris with all the most beautiful things that your eye can see, but for some reason the happiness doesn't enter your heart. Like, this equation has been solved for us. And it's only solved through transmission, not through smarts. Because God sent a prophet, He told us this. We accepted this prophet as a teacher. He led us to this education and this reality. And we've seen hundreds upon thousands, upon tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, which we call awliya, who have lived that way. We see their happiness right in front of us. Right. And we receive we receive that sakina. That light comes onto us too. None of this gibberish is going to provide you with that. No matter how much piece of information that you're going to get. No matter how much it's used in medicine, it makes you live longer. Live longer for what? How does that change anything? Living longer doesn't mean living happier. So,
right. I mean,
those are the ways that Muslims are going to be different in this regard.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do we encounter the situation in which you have someone who is very intelligent, books-wise, right, IQ-wise, but they're upon kufr, right? We encounter this all the time, where it's like, oh, well, if you were so smart, because the way that Islam, we define aql, right, is very different than, you know, the way the secular world defines intelligence. A person could have gone to Harvard and MIT and done big degrees and still be completely devoid of any aql because he's upon falsehood, right? Whereas some Bedouin in the desert, right, who doesn't even know, you know, alif ba, doesn't know ABCs, doesn't know anything, he believes in Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This person is endowed with far greater aql than the person in an academic institution, right? The way we process and we frame the world is very different than the kafir, right? So this is something to keep in mind. One thing I think I'll say before we kind of get to the close and questions is a lot of people, there's a lot of thought that I see and you know, where it's like, I don't want to touch this technology. I don't want to be a part of this technology. This technology is from the Dajjal, or this technology is evil. I think this is the trap that Muslims fell into with the Industrial Revolution as well, right? We got steamrolled, right? Look at what happened to the caliphate, to the ummah, because of not wanting to actually embrace new technology. Technology is a tool, and it always will be. How we use it and how we adapt to it is what forms our mentality and our ethics and state. So one thing I think I want to tell people, this is not going away, right? We now have the ability, even if there was a nuclear bomb that fell on us today, even if all of the technology were wiped out, electricity went down, right? As soon as that electricity came back up, you don't need the internet. This model now exists on your laptop. Right? This model can now exist on a computer somewhere. Even after the nuclear holocaust, this stuff will just like spring back up in 5 minutes, right? There is no way to actually stop what is happening now, right? We are now, besides, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do anything, of course, right? But if we're just speaking from a pure like intellectual perspective, this is like asking, me to fall through this floor. It can happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do these things. This is jaiz aqlan, right? But look, it's just not, it doesn't make any sense that this technology is just going to go away, right? So you need to adapt, assuming that this technology is going to be there. And it's going to grow, it's going to become more powerful, and we need to shape our ethics, our politics, the way we look at the world, the way we look at organizations, the way you educate your children, right? If you have young children like I do, how are you going to educate them for the next 15 years, 20 years, in which there's not going to be any data analyst job, there's not going to be some random job as a radiologist, right? It's just not going to exist. So you need to start thinking today, how are you going to adapt to this world in 15 years for your children?
Yeah.
Right. And how are we as a society going to adapt to this world?
What about jobs that require your hands?
For now, that's not a solved problem, right? But as soon as we have robots that can do that, then that will be a solved problem too. So I'll let Nafiz take it. I've been talking for a while.
Nafiz.
Robotics is a hard problem to solve.
Yep.
So I think manual labor professions are still safe for the foreseeable
Can you
future.
imagine a robot doing procedures inside your mouth? It's a bit too sensitive, right?
Not in the near future.
Yeah, dentistry, I guess. We're going to have a whole bunch of dentists.
Yeah, not in the near future. Robotics, it's a very difficult problem to solve, and the companies are still struggling.
Medical fields,
there are a couple of
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
There are a couple of companies that are trying to bring humanoid robots into your home, to do simple stuff like doing laundry or cutting onions and things like those. And even those are it's a hard problem in general.
Yeah, it's like how do they taste the food? The more subjective things are, the less AI can do it. Like entertainment, comedy, right?
Yeah, those are all creative. Everything you've mentioned,
everything creative.
Those are a creative field, right? So I think creative fields will always be around. I actually, people think writing is done. I actually think writing is one of the fields that's pretty safe, right? Because writing is I don't want to read a book by an AI. I want to read a book that a human wrote because I want the human being's perspective.
Yeah.
I don't care even if the book is better written by an AI. I don't care about the lousy English or prose that the human wrote. I want to read what the human wrote. I don't care for the opinion of an AI. And this is the same with any media. As soon as you find out that, you run across some YouTube video that's like an AI voice, you immediately turn it off. I don't want to listen to this.
You don't want to listen to it. Yeah.
I don't want to listen.
Senior citizens for the senior citizens are finally getting it, but for 5 years, the past 5 years, the AI has been getting better and better and better. And I've seen many senior citizens have full-fledged, frustrated conversations, thinking they're talking to a human, right?
Of course.
And now they're getting better and they're figuring things out. But the AI is getting better too. It's clearing its throat, it's saying "excuse me," right? It's sniffling, it's sneezing, it's doing the little tiny nuanced things that would trigger your brain that this is a rope, this is not real.
Yeah, those are all, as I said, those are all engineering problems.
Mm-hmm.
So they are working on solving the engineering. But the technology is here. One of the other positive points, if I may add, is you can build $1 million company now on a product by yourself, and you don't have to know coding.
On what you said?
$1 million companies, we will see soon. People have already built those. People who don't know how to code, they can use one of these IDEs, Cursor, Tray, or anything else, and then they can build a product to sell to people that people will use, like an app, like a web app that's going to generate millions of dollars in revenue.
Listen,
it's already happening.
Moeen, what you said about trading, bots that are discovering what's climbing up, buy it, what's going down, sell it. And this happens within minutes, right?
Within nanoseconds.
Within seconds, yeah. So the thing is, so if you're earning per stock 16 cents, right? Now just multiply that. today, if you could do this, like these little penny stocks or any stock, really, you may have a very tiny sliver, but the principle is if the thing knows how to sell on the way down and buy on the way up, right? That's all the principle you need. Then at that point, it's just a matter of how much cash you're putting in, and people could be earning $500,000 in a month, right? Just operating these bots. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so DeepSeek. Oh, sorry. Is there someone off camera?
Yeah, there's yeah.
So with these types of clever tricks for the
Yep.
bots, there's still a physical limitation. So all the big banks, they actually own property in the same location in Jersey City because they need to be as close as possible to the New York Stock Exchange to actually take advantage of what you're talking about. So you could have a great model, but if your cables are
It's the nanosecond level.
exactly, and so that's why the physical still matters, right? All these
Yep.
things still have
And that's
things
what
that build on top of them.
what Fahad just said is that it literally the closer you are in New York, you could take advantage of those nanoseconds, and it's true. And then I had a friend who was actually a professional gamer back in the day, and because he was from Australia, he hit a peak because the cables were so far away. He was like milliseconds off, and that was enough to throw him off over the course of an hour or 2 or 3 hours. He's lagging way behind everybody else in the game, so he had to retire. They said either move to America or retire because by the time the signal gets across, there's a delay. So there is an element of the physical aspect there.
I mean, so much so that the company DeepSeek,
Yeah.
they were actually a quant trading firm. So they're I think they're one of the ones that were responsible for the '08 crash, right? In terms of like, because they're trading using like ML algorithms and stuff, and this is like what they do, right? And that's how they're using these algorithms, and they're so good at it. That's why they actually eventually transitioned to create DeepSeek, right?
Yep.
So there is like a direct correlation into ML algorithms and trading and AI, because it's a lot of math, it's a lot of reasoning, it's you have to have like small lag time between for the inference and stuff. So there's there's a big correlation. So I think that's a good. I think we gave a pretty good summary. I know a few people asked like who we are, who Nafiz and I are, and I know we didn't really give an introduction. So I'll give like a final introduction, just a brief one for myself. So I have been working in the technology sector for like 15 years roughly. I currently work as a solutions architect and product manager and software developer for Comcast. And I have worked as a consultant for a number of firms, Accenture, Deloitte, many firms over my career. And I now
TV too.
Yeah, TV, Verizon, a bunch of different firms. So now what I do, I actually work with Nafiz. We both of us run a AI consulting company in which we provide management consulting services for various different firms on how to adapt to this technology and kind of help their company. So that's my background. And I went to Rutgers University, and if anybody knows me from the Safina Society podcast, I've been working with Dr. Shadee for a long time.
He's the founder of the Safina Society podcast.
So
he's the first one who said we have to do a podcast. So I was like, what is that all about?
So before NBF, we had the podcast for 5 years. So, the new listeners might not know me, but old listeners might be familiar with who I am.
Yeah. 2015 is when we started.
Yeah.
The original podcast. Nafiz is another brainiac. Now, I want to say something about these two gentlemen here. Their track record is pretty good in the sense that way back in about January 10th, January 15th, January 20th, we were on a podcast, and Moeen was on and on about this virus coming out of China. And we're like, here's Moeen being Moeen again, right? Turns out he was right about that. So that's actually one case in which he dunked on that, and he was really totally right. Yeah, there's a muwafaqat right there. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens here. How many lives are going to be different? Schooling is definitely different. Like, there's no point anymore to give a paper to students to take home and write. There's no point.
Yeah.
The only thing to measure if they know anything is to give them a pen and paper at school and a blue book.
You have to bring back oral exams again.
We're going to go back to that era, right? You bring back oral exams. Yep.
We'll have to shift the perspective on education, because right now, like, students are only taught that you're getting educated for getting a career. So like when most students at like a high school or something, they're taking an exam, like they don't care, right? They're like, I'm not going to get a career anyway, right?
Yeah.
So from the beginning, we now have to train new students to understand, look, you're not going to get a job out of this. You're doing this for education's sake, right? You're only doing this to enrich yourself as a human being and as a Muslim. And then now that brings a question to us too. Do we even need like Muslim secular education type schools? Like, should we just purely focus on like the madrasa systems, aqidah, fiqh, and then like only like pepper in math and science? Because all of that can now be outsourced to the AI. Why would we even teach math and science? Just have the AI teach it, right? We teach the subjects that matter to us, right? Quran, tafsir, fiqh, aqidah, tasawwuf, these things matter, right? Why even spend time at like a daily institution where like you're learning how to do calculus? Okay, that can be, you can go do that for an hour after school.
They already stopped teaching the times tables,
right?
Which sort of drove me nuts, because eventually you need to know really quickly in the middle of an equation, 12 divided by 4, 144 divided by 12. And if you need to think about that, you're slowing things down and your chance error. I still wish that they had taken a month out of second grade or third grade, whenever they introduce multiplication, and just memorize the darn tables for multiplication and division, right? And even though, like, yeah, we have machines to do that, but certain information is always better to have right off the top of your head.
Absolutely. And I think we agree on this, that like there's obviously certain bits of information. It's like you're learning Arabic, right?
Yeah.
You still need to know your sarf tables, regardless of whether you can ask ChatGPT on like, okay, what is the Arab of this, or what is the sarf of this? Like, it's still valuable to know it yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to fluently read 100%. By yourself, right?
Yeah. All right. So closing statements, Nafiz?
Inshallah, I don't want to end on a negative trend. The purpose of this discussion was to generate awareness of what is coming, because most 99% of people are not aware. They are thinking this is just another cloud, another internet thing, but this is a different type of technology. Like, it's going to change things, and inshallah, with this we will get back to the subjects that matter to us more, like the humans, like the humanities. I feel like the humanities are going to be big again among Muslims, inshallah.
Well,
that's going to be a good thing.
One thing I just want to say, Moeen, you said this technology is not going to go anywhere, but it still relies on a lot of power, right?
Not anymore.
How
right? So, for example, you could have a laptop running DeepSeek. I can run DeepSeek on my laptop.
But if there's no internet, what?
You don't need the internet for DeepSeek anymore. It's an open source model that you can run locally.
Yeah, the information's already on it.
Yeah, you don't like this is what people aren't understanding. Like DeepSeek, for example, if you have a powerful enough computer, and I don't mean like millions of dollars. I'm talking about $5,000 computer, right? $5,000 to $10,000 like desktop computer. If you could put it together, you can run the highest DeepSeek model yourself, offline, off the internet, in Antarctica, in some hole somewhere.
I see.
Right?
You
don't need
700 gigabytes of RAM.
Yeah. So like it's technically possible. You might need like some money to get like 700 gigs of RAM, but we're not talking millions of dollars. That's like a 20,000, 30,000 investment, right?
Yeah. Also, the way AI is going to be everywhere is because all these models, they use a technique called distillation to bring them down to a smaller size model,
right,
which is still like pretty good. Like the performance doesn't drop much. And then these small models, you can put them in all kinds of embedded devices, like your phone or something else.
Timur has a question. Go ahead.
It's a quick question, kind of side topic.
Yeah.
Using the current AI that we have available to us, how can we use that to make money?
I don't know. Well, if you find out, let me know.
We're still trying to search.
Which one?
Like build products.
What do you
build
mean by products?
Like think of an app that would solve a problem of yours and just build it. You don't need to know coding. Like just do vibe coding with one of these IDEs, ask it what you want, generate the output, and then modify on that. Keep working on that.
People who want to make money, they need to be bothered by an issue, right? That's really the origins of it. They need to be bugged. They need to be upset by something. That's the problem. Then they work and fail in finding solutions. Then they do find a solution, and that solution, they get really good at it. Then they offer it to the world. That's really the solution to these things. That's really how things work.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you solve a user need, right?
Yeah.
So, but by the way, like, and now I'll creep into a little bit of negative here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these things, like making money, making products, making all these things, this is great, and I think it's good solutions in the interim, right? Especially for the next I think for the next 5-6 years, we're good. We're fine. Like, I don't think anything, catastrophic is going to be happening. We'll start seeing small things over the next couple of years, layoffs, things like that. But I think society will be functioning relatively normally for the next 5 to 6, 7 years, right? But a 10-year time frame really is not that long. Like, we're going to see in the next 10 years massive changes that we didn't think about, right? So these like interim solutions about like, oh, maybe I like pivot to this industry, or I pivot to that industry, or I do this thing. This is great for the next 5 years. I think, we all have families to feed. We all have homes to take care of. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide. Look, if I get laid off, anybody else gets laid off, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide. We're not afraid of this. The risk is from him. However, even all these interim solutions about moving to this, moving to that, this is great. But I think, eventually, once the AI gets powerful enough, then your product is going to be useless to, a segment of the population. I think what you should focus on is make your money quick, right? Your window for making that money is small. So make your money and get out. Like, don't think about like some 5-year plan. Think about how can I, make something that people need right now and I can make money from quickly in the next 2 years.
Yeah, anything that's tech-based before everyone's going to catch up eventually, right? I think the more secure money is made very slowly on things that are not founded upon shifting realities. Like someone's really good at AI today, tomorrow everyone is good at it, right? Someone knows how to use a website today, 10 years later, it's in 2010, everyone knows how to make websites, right? So anything where your foundation of your wealth is shifting, you got to do it quick. And you only have a small window, and then you retire from that, and then you put it in the safe stuff. But if somebody wants actual more stabilized wealth, they're just going to have to go the old-fashioned route, and those certain things that never change, that humans always need, and don't change. It's slower, but it's more guaranteed, and it lasts longer. Fahd, go ahead.
A plumber and an electrician make $1,000 a day.
It's insane. Plumbers and electricians. Yeah.
Forget the 5 years. You want a 30-year plan.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a 15-year plan because you can retire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, plumbers are good.
Immigrant dad
Plumbers.
mentality, right? You have to start thinking a little bit more like, where is the value, not necessarily where's the prestige. I think that's one of the bigger gaps, right? If you're willing to do something that people don't want to do, and you're willing to put 2 or 3 years into the training that it takes to get that qualification, you'll be fine.
Yes, prestige gets in the way. Ego always gets in the way of things, and prestige is not necessarily always an ego thing. I mean, but value is more important than prestige, right? And oftentimes people will never do something because it's not prestigious, right? They can't really say to people. I knew somebody who used to pump gas, but he used to tell people that he was a automotive fuel technician. So like, whoa, this guy's like working at Exxon in labs and stuff, right? Right? He was just pumping gas, right?
I think I do have some.
I know. Yeah.
I think I do have some hard advice for people who are like just entering college, right?
Yeah.
So somebody recently asked me, they're like graduating from high school, like what major should they do?
Yeah.
So I gave him some hard advice. He didn't like it, but I told him like, look, the best thing you could do is don't go to a big university.
Yeah.
Go to community college for 2 years and you want to wait this out.
Yeah.
Right? Don't spend your money at a big university and drop $60K, right? I want you to go to community college. Just major in whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. 2 years in a community college. Then after 2 years, you're going to evaluate what's the landscape, because right now we're at like a really we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. So if you can stall, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm just telling people, like if you're entering like college this year or next or like within the next 6 to 9 months, I want you to stall for 2 years, right? And if you can find some easy way to stall, listen, go take a rihla to Morocco, learn some Arabic or something, to Istanbul. They have all those programs. Go do that for a year, learn some Arabic, come back, right? You'll have enriched yourselves and you'll now have a better idea of where the landscape is. Right now, like we're like functionally experts in this space, and we have no idea what the landscape will be in 2 years. So I'm telling people, you need to stall, especially if you're making any big career decisions, life decisions. You need to wait like 2 years before doing anything drastic.
It's amazing how in history, the great wealthy people in certain fields, if you notice what's common about them, they all were born around a certain time, and they hit their youth when a window was just opening up. They hit their prime. They were at the leadership of that window, right? And then that window closes up. So the people born slightly before and slightly after them, you know about this fact.
There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, let me find the title.
Yeah.
I think it's Outliers, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
And he charts all these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about.
Yeah, that's how it is. Thank you guys very much. I want to now tell everybody about our Umrah trip that we're going on.
Jazakallah khairan. Sheikh Shadee.
Thank you, Nafiz, very much.
Jazakallah khairan.
Wayne, make sure you hit back, touch base with us again next time.
Will do.
Something's going on.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
All right. Wa alaikum salam to Allah. Umrah. Pilots, the people who make your beds in the hotels, the people who cook your foods. None of those people, none of that can ever be taken away by AI. Right? Huh? Yeah. Maybe it'd be better given all the falling airplanes that robots run the planes than humans these days. But fire up that advertisement and the website and everything, because by popular demand, we have added 10 more spots for our 2025 Ramadan Umrah. So you could register now before these spots are going to get there. 200 and some people here. There are a bunch of people on Instagram and Facebook. So there may be 300-400 people listening here. So grab your spot quick before they probably will be taken by the end of the day. Okay. They will probably be scooped up pretty soon. So make sure you get these and make sure you get this wonderful Umrah trip. Of course, you go to Umrah in the month of Ramadan. What it is on your mind, you got to keep it, right? You got to keep it on your mind. Inshallah, that dua will be answered if a person is sincere and has ikhlas. All right, well, so keep up the flyer here while I answer some questions. All right, Quandil says, reposting my questions as they have disappeared. Type repost so we can see them. Let me just remind everybody that the videos going around and a hadith going around stating that if you hear the call to prayer and there's food in your bowl, do not leave your bowl, eat it. That has to do with the tahajjud adhan. Al-Khattabi says, Mahmul ala adhan al-awwal, the adhan of Bilal. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he used to say, Bilal gives the adhan in the night, so you eat and drink until the adhan of Ibn Maktoum. That's Fajr. So what he means is, do not feel alarmed when you hear that first adhan. That first adhan is the signal to stop. And that adhan may be, 30 minutes ahead of the adhan of Fajr. So it's a signal. It's not saying the fast has started. It's a signal to stop. What is the action of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because the sunnah is his words and his actions. And here in the fast, we have a very clear verse of Quran that says the fast begins when the first light emerges. That's Fajr. That is Fajr. And then we have the second piece of information we have. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us there are two adhans. Adhan of Bilal and adhan of Ibn Maktoum. Tahajjud and Fajr. Third piece of information, we see the Prophet ﷺ telling the Sahaba, if you hear the first, he didn't even call it adhan, he said nida. The first nida, perhaps an ishara that it's not the adhan of Fajr, it's a nida, it's a call. It's a signal to stop eating, but you may finish your bowl and completing. What's the fourth piece of information that's very important for us is Sahih al-Bukhari's hadith from Zayd bin Thabit. Anas asked him, Zayd said, I made many suhurs with the Prophet ﷺ. Anas said to him, how long was the difference from his suhur to the adhan? So there was clearly a gap. Zayd estimated the time it would take you to recite 50 ayahs. Most of the surahs in juz number 29 are 50 ayahs. Around 50 ayahs. Maybe juz 28, maybe juz 27. I mean, this is not so hard. Let's just look it up. Usually it has, no, it doesn't say how many ayahs in a surah. All right, Al-Qasas is 88 ayahs. Right. Yasin is 86 ayahs. But this is just a time limit. So there was a scholar in Morocco, very famous scholar in Morocco. He made a taqdir, or an estimation, that the different 86 ayahs is sent. Oh, sorry, Yasin is 83 ayahs. 83 ayahs of Yasin. All right. So the Yasin takes you how long to recite? 10 minutes, 10, 15, slow recitation. Ibn Hajar even talks about this. He says a moderate recitation, not slow, not fast. It's going to be 15 minutes, something like that. So that's a clarification. Every time that, when we have the last 10 nights in the masjid, we're all having suhoors together. Inevitably, guaranteed, somebody comes up to us and says, hold on, I heard I could finish this sandwich in my hand. And someone says, no, I can finish the whole plate. I said, yeah, you're correct, but you got the wrong adhan. You can finish the whole plate if it's the tahajjud adhan, not the adhan of Fajr. You owe qada, not kafara, but qada. False fatwa like that, incorrect fatwa like that, it's qada, right? You owe qada. When you intentionally, without ta'wil qareeb, your ta'wil is ba'id, your interpretation is far off, and you're intentionally disrespecting the month, then you owe qada and kafara, which is to, yeah, if it's something that you got a false piece of information. That's sort of almost no different than someone told you the time of Fajr was wrong. Right? Someone tells you the time of Fajr was wrong. Then you're innocent. But you still owe qada because you didn't fast properly. 1 day makeup. 1 day, that's it. 1 day makeup, qada.
There's this one mas'ala that's kind of funny. Where like, this applies that when there's a shubha, that there's qada, no kafara. Mm-hmm. But if, let's say, you do ghiba, yep, and then you break your fast because you think you broke your fast, then you have kafara too.
Yeah, because that's so far off interpretation. Yep, that's a far off interpretation. Another mistake that people regularly make is that they know that traveling is an excuse to break your fast. However, the traveling must commence before Fajr. So it's that you're traveling from the night before. So if your traveling starts at 2 p.m., you still have to finish the day. If you enter the day and Fajr is in, you have to fast that day, even if you're traveling the entire rest of the day. Okay. Where can we learn about rights on family members and their rights on us? Well, why don't you start with a book called The Rights of Parents that you could purchase by Sheikh Rami Ansur. Rami Ansur, it's spelled N-S-O-U-R. And you can go to Amazon and buy that book. I highly recommend it. That will teach you your rights towards your parents. The rights towards the grandparents is almost like a skip. It's very similar to that, to the rights of parents. Then that's pretty much the most important one. Then you have the rights on the neighbors. Rights on the neighbors. They have rights. Then you have rights. Every relationship has rights and responsibilities. I don't know of a single book that listed the relationships and then listed the rights and responsibilities. I've actually never seen that. Remember, we're going to take most of your questions tomorrow, but we will take a couple questions here. Is it permitted to buy and sell Bitcoin? Yes, ulama have permitted that. And the Shafi'i out of Egypt were dead against it because you can't get your rights in court. If you get robbed, where are you going to get your rights in court? So they looked at it from, if this thing goes bad, how do we fix it? Flossie B, can I intend isalu thawab for a khitam of Quran in Ramadan to a living person, or can it only be dead? If you're in the medical school, it's only for a dead Muslim, not person. He has to die as a Muslim. Hey, Omar, in the Hanafi school, can you do isalu thawab for someone alive? Yeah. So in the Muslim or kafir? Muslim, at least. Yeah. So it has to be a Muslim living person in the Hanafi school. He can be living or dead. Okay. All right. Let's go to, in an old stream, it was mentioned vasectomy is impermissible because of the permanence, but it can be reversed, therefore acceptable. Yes. The key is if it can be reversed, then it's permitted, but to permanently stop it, Allah knows best. Maybe other madhabs different sayings about that, but we'll see. Schools must be smaller around in all communities, teaching hifz, academics, lifestyle skills, plumbing, etc., a holistic approach. I'll add something to this school. Martial arts. Cancel gym. What training is it? What benefit, value of life when we have a gym class for basketball, then a gym class for volleyball, then a gym class? I know my gym teacher friends are going to be very upset by this, right? So no offense. It's not going to happen. It's just like, but think about this. Why? How about martial arts? Of course, the reason you're not going to do that is because the parents have to sign off on it. Parents today are very weak. Parents today, they really treat their kids with such, like he's a fragile vessel. But you're probably better off with a kid who knows martial arts than doesn't. I mean, I wish that someone had done that to me. And my friend who does martial arts, and that's like his profession, he views it as no different than getting a driver's license. Like, this is something, whether you like it or not, you need 2 years of martial arts minimum. Imagine that you take out gym from the school and have martial arts. Firstly, the bullying would go down, right? Because everyone knows how to fight. Everyone knows moves. The confidence would go up. There's a lot of things that I think that could make school better. For example, high school, last 2 years of high school, internships, free, right? It's not so hard. You get a whole bunch of businesses. They have to follow certain protocols. And kids now, when they have licenses, or their parents could take them, half the parents work from home, as we just saw Nafiz and Moeen, they're working from home. Take theory, 2-3 hours of the day, internship. You're going to strengthen their knowledge of real life and workplace. You're going to strengthen the community because now they're getting free labor, right? And then every 3 months, he switches to a different industry. From everything, like mechanic, hospital, lawyer, or maybe not hospital, but medical office, lawyer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he's like, yeah, I worked there for 3 months. I know the vibe there. I know what the prices are like. I know what the customers are like. I know what they do, right? I know where the suppliers are, what the procedures are. Then he does that at a dentist's office. Then he does that at a lawyer's office. And he really gets a good vibe of everything. So even at a farm, then he really can know what is he like. How is he supposed to know what to major in if he's never even seen these workplaces? Think about this, right? And he has no mentors. No mentors. This is a place to get mentors. So you will have 8 modules in your junior and senior year because you're going to have 1 per semester, per marking period. So 4 in your junior year, 4 in your... Saying like, what's the point of summer? Why all this waste of time, right? How about shrink the school day? Shrink it. And expand the school year. And increase the days off throughout. So let's make summer break 5 weeks. You do really need more than 5 weeks off in a row. You don't need that. But we're so burnt out because the schedule of the regular school year. It's school very early. It's 5 days a week. It goes late. Then if you have an activity, then you have tons of homework. Here's another thing I would be for. What about really decreasing homework? Oh, I got to do math problems. Okay. What did you do in school? What was the point of school? Isn't the point of school to do math problems, right? So sometimes I wonder about homework and the value of homework. Now, I don't mean to offend anyone, like totally brainstorming a new vision of schooling. That doesn't mean that the current vision is bad, that I don't support them. No, I'm totally with them. I support them. And they inherited a system. They didn't invent the system, and you can't change a system. None of us can change a system like this. This is a huge undertaking that would take so much talking, and it would take so much cooperation, and it's still, be hard to do. But those are the changes I would make to schooling. And I think that would be a lot better. Taguida says, yeah, archery, swimming, horse riding, martial arts. What do you think of Wim Hof? Well, I think that guy's at another level. And I love it because it's just oxygen. All you need is a nose, right? Wim Hof, you heard of it? Wim Hof? The breathing guy. He can do things to his body just by how much oxygen he brings into his body. And the first basic thing is the exercising the lungs, stretching the lungs. And he fills a lung, hold it for like a few seconds, exhale, hold that. So the lung is, most of us, when we breathe very shallow. We breathe in a way that the lung doesn't move. We don't fill it. So he says, fill it, decrease it, and hold. Each time, hold. And that would make your lung elastic. And it can eventually take in so much oxygen that he does stuff with his body that's Junoon. Yeah. Wim Hof. He's a Scandinavian guy. Yeah.
Going back quickly to the education point.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book from a long time ago by Richard Hofstadter. It's called Anti-Intellectualism in American Life. And it talks about how the modern schooling system developed. At least his argument was that it was actually designed in a way to make good employees. It's not designed
100%.
to make good thinkers
100%.
or good humans. And so what you're talking about, first of all, I'd sign my kids up. So
Yeah.
let me know what the tuition is. But then number two, I think if you go back even 100 years,
Yeah.
a version of that is what existed almost everywhere. Because not everyone was going to school, first
Yeah.
of all. So the people that were getting schooling were getting a better version of it. And then two, this was really, it was part of this corporate mold of you need people who are going to do their job and be happy to do their job and graduate into these economies.
100%.
So once you, maybe this ties to the AI thing,
Yeah.
right? Once you don't need a bunch of people graduating into this corporate economy, maybe then you get back to just creating good humans.
That's it. I mean, you make a school like this that turns out leaders. Next generation, we're going to be like, we don't need this many leaders. Let's make a school to turn out workers, right? But another thing I would do, and this is not for religious reasons. I know there is a religious basis for it, but I'm saying that I feel personally boys learn differently from girls and mature differently than girls. Boys need to be a bit more hands-on. They need the camaraderie of the guys, and they need to not be constantly trounced by the girls, which I see all the time. Girls in school, that whether it's the nature of where they mature faster, the nature of the schooling probably maybe favors them because you're just sitting listening. There's no physical activity. The boy's got so much stuff in himself, right? Energy and all that. So he gets trounced, right? So I feel personally that possibly that boys, their way of learning is very different. It's a lot more hands-on, and it needs to be hands-on. So I would actually separate the two. Maybe in certain things they don't need to be separated, but in certain other fields that they do. But in any event, all that's theory. It's all a dream, not a dream even, but it's just an idea. Here's a question on recurring dreams: being unable to open eyes but not blind. and need to go to the bathroom, but only dirty toilets with people available. Meaning and cure. Allah knows best. Allah knows best, and that's something I would like to think about because I really don't have a direct answer. Although dirty toilets is never really a great sign. People say delay in marriage, conceiving children, or having mental illness is due to jinn. Not necessarily. No, you can't say that. Cannot say that. Can't say that. Can't limit it to that. There's a lot of reasons for those things. Delay in marriage, mostly people believe that they should delay the marriage. That's why they have a delay in marriage. They believe in it. All right, let's see what other questions we have. D. Huss. No, I don't know. Wim Hof is Dutch, not Scandinavian. And his wife committed suicide? Whoa. She jumped out of a window. Oh, okay, my gosh, jeez. That's not good. But it's also not related to his breathing, I think. Maybe he was breathing too much. She said, this is nuts. But you can check him out, and you will feel a difference in your energy if you do this. See, this is one of the things I was toying with putting it into the Avoid Disaster diet, but I didn't because it's just like a bit hard for people to grasp what it is, how much, and I wanted to limit it to 7. There was none of the 7 that I could knock off that was less important than breathing. All right, my class is about to start, so we'll take a couple quick questions.
We need like an infograph for the Avoid Disaster.
Yeah, we need an infograph. That's a good idea.
Quick question.
Yes.
Back to the fasting timings. So, like, if Fajr is coming in, I think it's like 5:15 the first day.
Mm-hmm.
So we should stop at like 5.
Yeah, just about 5. Yeah, 15 minutes ahead.
But technically, we're allowed to stop.
Yes, you are. So the thing is, the point the Prophet was making is that he observed imsak, but he does not want people to imagine you're not allowed to eat. Because what if a person has a need? What if he woke up late? What if he forgot to take his medicine? Yeah. So that's the importance of knowing that imsak is just for safety. It's common sense. If I'm not allowed to eat past this time, why would I eat up to this time and ruin my fast? So I'm going to do what the Prophet did. He observed imsak. The amount of times Zayd bin Thabit said of reciting 50 verses.
Also, just to that question, those calculations aren't necessarily perfect, right? So if you're going based on Fajr
that too
someone observed, it's going to be different than if you're going based on a Fajr calculation.
100%.
So there's even different degree calculations, and those would be different based on where you're geographically located. So
why are we talking as if the calculations on our phones is the word of God? It's not absolute. There's a % error there. Right.
So whatever the app says, minus 10.
12, 15. Because also think about this. You also want to make wudu and pray tahajjud.
Yeah, exactly.
2 rakahs, 4 rakahs. Yeah. Could we do a 5-minute? The key for imsak is that you have absolutely no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. That's the key. And no accidents. Because you can have food in your mouth, swallow it, you've broken your fast. Yeah.
And then for brushing teeth, like, you cannot brush with like toothpaste, right?
Toothpaste, I believe it's like a munashit. It's considered a munashit. So your teeth can be touched by toothpaste, but not your tongue and your gums and all that will be a soak into your and go into your throat. Yeah.
So better to brush your teeth before
Better to brush your teeth before and
you
then use the miswak throughout the day.
And sometimes you have like saliva that kind of, what do you call it? What's the right word? Yeah, accumulates in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, so like, just like, maybe from talking or throughout the day, dry mouth kind of accumulates.
You can rinse water.
Okay, so you cannot swallow it though, right?
Of course not. Okay. You can rinse with water. You can swallow your own saliva, but you can rinse with water in the fast. Yeah, no problem with that. All right, D Hus, I don't know what this means. catering a world leader and him being under your people's captivity in general. You captured him. لا أدري, to be honest with you. That's great. It's good for you. I wouldn't mind capturing some people myself.
He explained it after. He said, I grabbed Trump from his upper back suit and brought him into a dining hall where a banquet was.
لا أدري والله. لا أدري. I can't tell you.
Trump.
Can't tell you the answer to that. Maliki Madhab, why they have 3 taslim, 1 to salam out, 1 to reply to the imam, 1 to the person on your left. So therefore, if there's just an imam, then it's 2 taslims. If you're the imam, then 1 taslim. That's it. And if you're praying by yourself, then 1 taslim. In the Maliki school, Fard Salah, we can recite dua in any language in sujood. The answer is yes. If you know Arabic, then in Arabic. If you don't know Arabic, then it can be in any other language. No karahiyah there. Okay. All right. We got to run, folks. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر والسلام عليكم ورحمة
kalbe şifa